everyone. I'm Carol Gable, your host of Business Connections, where every week I get the opportunity to introduce you to a business connector that you should know. And today, I am probably more excited than you are to have her with me today. I want to introduce you to Dr. Laura Sicola.
Hi, Carol. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you. I'm so excited for so many reasons. So, Dr. Laura has a company, and it is called Vocal Impact Productions.
Yes.
So Vocal Impact.
Right.
And the reason that I am so excited today is because you prompted me to really be more aware of our vocal impact and what that means. And of course, having a TV show, not only can you see me, but you can hear me.
Yes.
So I am fully conscious today about speaking and the importance of it, not necessarily how I sound, but what I'm saying, how I'm saying it. And, I really never realized in business the importance of that. So I really thank you for not only being here and sharing your story with me, but with our entire audience. So.
Great.
Talking about influence and about how our voice influences others, you were influenced at some point to do what you do.
Yes.
I know when you were 3 or 4, you didn't say to your mom and dad, one day I'm going to write this book and this is what I'm going to do. There were some zigs and zags along the way. So why don't you share with me a little bit about how you got here?
There were a lot of zigs and zags. If anything, it was more of a giant mass of twisted yarn. But I think, your your question as far as when you're 3 or 4, when do you know what it's going to be? I have a 17-year-old at home who's now starting to think about what he wants his career to be, schools, university path. And he asked me just maybe a couple of weeks ago, he said, did you always know that this is what you wanted to do? Meaning that I would be an executive communications coach, that I would train on speech and leadership and all of these things. And I looked at him and I said, sweetie, I didn't know what I do now was a thing until somebody offered to pay me to do it. We have so many different skill sets, and I think I've always known that I like talking to people. And something that was always important to me was the feeling, how frustrated I felt when I wasn't understood. And I think that's been a consistent thread through all of my work, through all of my different jobs and career twists and turns, is just the need to feel like people understand what's in my head and in my heart, and what that takes to be able to communicate that effectively, and other people sharing that need. That where people get most angry, most defensive, most frustrated is when they don't feel heard, when they don't feel understood. And so that is sort of the thread that's gotten me here, and realizing, and that's why I wrote this book, Speaking to Influence, because influence is based on your ability to be heard and understood. And nobody understands why there's a gap between what I think I say and what you think you hear. And when we can identify what it is that creates that gap, there's so much power that we have in our hands to control that degree of influence that we have. And I love to give people that power.
I just love what you just said, because that's the essence of really developing relationships in business and making those connections. If you're not heard and you're not effectively communicating, you're lost, right? You're invisible. So someone, I guess it was your dad, right, influenced you, and he was a teacher, correct?
Yes.
So you are a teacher also.
I am. Yeah, my father taught middle school for 40 years, so I don't know whether he should, that would be my face too, exactly. I always say I don't know whether he should be canonized or committed, maybe both. But
wow.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid, he taught band and music. So as a kid, I would always go to his Christmas concerts, his holiday concerts, and his spring concerts. And it was amazing to me to walk down the hall before and after the concert, and all the kids were like, "Hi, Mr. Sicola. Hi, Mr. Sicola. Oh, is this your daughter?" And they would all tell me how great he was. Aww. And I think about a lot of my middle school teachers, and I wouldn't have necessarily said that to their kids. I may not have said anything, but I probably wouldn't have been that enthusiastic about it. And when I was 23, I decided to shift gears a little bit, and I became a public school teacher out in Los Angeles. And as I was getting ready, I was going to teach elementary school. And I remember one day talking to my father right before I moved out there to start this new career path. And I remember thinking, I asked him, Ted, it seems like your kids always respect you. And that was my biggest fear in going into teaching, how to get my students to respect me. I mean, number one, I was 23, which of course, when you're talking to an 8-year-old, you're already ancient, but I didn't feel like a grown-up necessarily. And I wanted to know, how do I get the kids to respect me? And his answer, I didn't totally understand at the time, but as I progressed, I realized the wisdom in it. He said, Laura, you can't just demand respect, you have to command it. And that was so powerful. Yeah, you can't demand respect, you have to command it. And I've realized that that's become such a core part of the training and the coaching that I do with business leaders, because it is about your presence. It is about how you talk to people, how you articulate your vision, how you get people on board, how you command the room and captivate attention without just saying, I'm the boss, it's my company, I'm the CEO, you'll do what I say, or you can hit the road, dug on it. There's one is command and one is demand. You may get them to comply by demanding, but you'll never have their heart and their soul. And the difference is night and day for not just you, but for every other person that they connect, and the experience of the engagement.
That's beautiful. So I love that. That's tremendous. I just read somewhere where the CEO was handwriting all of these notes of gratitude for the employees, sharing with him their thoughts, speaking, and he responded by writing a note to them. Tons. So it's the same thing, commanding versus demanding. And so that's interesting that your dad was involved in music, which is, again,
very
to the
auditory,
ears,
sure.
Auditory, and you became kind of enchanted with voice. And now you're teaching others about voice, and what a wonderful tool it could be. So we were talking before a little bit about appropriateness, and I find this in business often, about using your voice and being appropriate. So there's so many facets of this, and I'm so excited. I have to, organize them all in my mind. So we also talked about old records, right? Like 78, 45, and 33. Can you talk about speed and communication?
Should we clarify for those who are not of a certain generation what that even means?
Yes.
So, just the idea that different records of old would rotate at different speeds based on their size, and if you put the record player on the wrong speed, then it either sounds like chipmunks or like they're droning on. And in the same way, the way that you deliver your message to a particular audience, whatever your content is, how much they already know, their background, the tone that you're looking to set, you have to work on your speed along with your volume, along with your pacing and your pauses and your tonality, the highs and the lows. All of those different aspects change the sound of your voice. And if you're too hyperactive and anxious about something, you can sound like the chipmunks on 78. And if you are otherwise really not interested or a little unfocused, right, you can drone on a bit and put people to sleep. So much like a 33 rotation RPM for a record that wasn't meant to play at that speed. So being mindful of all those little delivery factors changes how people receive your message, because it changes how it sounds like you feel about what you're saying. And much like in restaurants, we say you eat with your eyes first, right?
Right.
So similarly, when you're listening to someone, if you're trying to be persuasive and talking, the person listening to you is going to first and foremost smell, I'll use that word metaphorically, the sense of what you are feeling and thinking about your own message. So if you don't seem like you're really interested in what you're talking about because of the way you're delivering it, before I even finish my first sentence, your brain shuts down. You're going, oh, this is going to be a long conversation. how much time do we got? Where's my phone? I need to entertain myself. And wait for her to sort of get done
It'll be over
droning
soon.
on. Right. So we want to make sure that they're not, the way that you feed off of that initial vibe from the speaker creates a filter that influences how we hear the actual message itself. So if you want people to be enthusiastic about something you're saying, then you have to be equally enthusiastic. Feed that enthusiasm to them implicitly, so then they interpret your message explicitly the way you want them to interpret it. So you have to feed them what you want them to take first.
I want to talk a little bit about phone messages, okay? We have to go to a break, but just briefly,
Sure.
talk about the importance of the message that you leave or when you answer the phone.
Sure. The short and sweet of it is that when you think about it, most people have a better relationship with your voicemail than with you if they don't already know you before they're calling. So that outbound voicemail that you leave, that message that everybody hears, is the impression that people have of you if they don't have a chance to talk to you first, or maybe they hear that over and over again. So if you sound like you're not really sure when you're introducing yourself, because you say, "Hi, this is Laura Sicola, and my company's Vocal Impact Productions. I'm sorry I can't come to the phone right now." So, and like you're going, "Oh my God, please make it stop." Doesn't sound like I'm really confident, doesn't sound like I'm the owner of this company. So I want to make sure that the impression I make in the 30 seconds of that outbound message are what I want people to perceive in me, not just hear the words, but the sense of, is this person a person I want to call back,
Right.
or not? And it's the same on the messages that you leave for other people. It's just as important.
So we have to take a break, but we'll come right back, I promise.
And we promise not to talk like that anymore.
Promise, it's going to get better. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Business Connections with my special guest, Dr. Laura Sicola. And we were being a little silly at the end of the last segment, but it's a pretty serious part of communication in the workplace. You know, the phone often is the first entry,
Yes.
whether it's the receptionist speaking and accepting communication, or if I'm communicating with the CEO on the phone or leaving a voice message, you know, it's part of our brand, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's one. But there are so many other, you know, aspects to vocal impact.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we'll get to the book in a brief second. I want to talk a little bit about why all this matters and what one would have to do to get really good at it. And we talked a little bit about running. So, and things that perhaps we don't normally pay attention to, but once we discover, we do when we talk, or and we have to watch ourselves painfully, you know, speaking on a video. It's almost like golf. Just relax, you know. Your arms have to be this
I'm
way,
such a
your
bad
knees
golfer.
have to be bent, you have to put your head down, you gotta, all right, now swing and have a good time.
Right. Don't forget to have fun.
So it reminds me that there are all these variables that go into great communication, and that's what you're an expert at and you're very knowledgeable about. And most of us maybe have one. We could project our voice loud, but it's not always necessary, nor is
Sure.
it appropriate. So knowing what we know about all of these variables, speak to the discipline, speak to what we need to do to get really good at it.
I think what's most important first is to ask yourself, what do you want your brand to be? And a lot of people, whether it's in work or in applying for jobs, or even college students getting ready to graduate, have to think about your personal brand, because a definition that I heard that I really like is that a brand is the promise of an experience and the experience of a promise delivered. So much of your brand, the what people think you are promising them about what it would be like to work with you, or to date you, or to just have coffee and network with you, is going to be based on how you sound, when you talk, how you frame your messages, how you deliver them vocally, your body language, all those different aspects of communication. So being mindful and being aware of how you actually come across when you speak compared to how you think you come across or how you want to come across is really important, because there's always a little bit of a gap between the two, as evidenced by any time you've seen yourself on somebody's iPhone video at a birthday party or a picnic, and you watch it 30 seconds after they took it and you go, oh my gosh, that sounded so much better in my head. Or who let me out of the house wearing that? What was my hair doing that day?
Right.
What we think we're projecting is a little off from what everybody else sees and hears. So the more we can start to pay attention to those variables, your voice, your speed, your pacing, your body language, et cetera, the clearer we are on what we are really presenting to the world as our brand promise. So we need to get a hold of that, because if you don't choose your own brand and work to build it, it'll choose you.
Wow.
And you may or may not be happy with that result.
Right, right. So I want to talk about your wonderful book.
Great.
And what prompted you to write the book?
Well, the book, can I hold it up?
Yes, absolutely.
So the book is called Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. And the goal is for anyone who really wants to figure out how to speak more authoritatively, more influentially, more persuasively, to be able to have the tools at their disposal. You don't have to spend weeks and weeks on something, but just to read a couple of pages and realize, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. I never realized when I do that, no wonder this person responds to me this way. No wonder that person doesn't seem to hear me when I'm putting ideas forward, or no wonder we're always butting heads. And there are, of course, external factors that will get in the way of our success. It could be whether there are active biases of one sort or other, and that's a whole different show to talk about. We can't control all of those in every given situation, but what we can control is how we engage. What we can control is how we sound and how we frame what we want to get across to that target audience in the moment. And this book is all about helping people to identify what are those tools and what are those variables, and where am I getting in my own way? Where did I not even realize that, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 20 years, no wonder I'm not having the results that I want to have. And this will give you back that power to take control and get better results.
You must have so many aha moments with your clients, and I know just from watching some of the videos and you've done a TED Talk, where you are so masterful at identifying some of these major challenges that all of us have. We use our voices from the time we wake up in the morning till the time we go to bed at night. So it is probably one of our most incredibly critical tools and resources that we have. So you do keynote speeches, you work with clients one-on-one, you go into major companies. What does the future look like for you, and what are you most proud of that you're working on right now?
Right now is actually a point of pivot, and we are trying to figure out how we want to get to a slightly broader audience, ironically narrower in higher level, in more of the C-level, but also broader, getting out to more people. And what I think we're starting to look at is how to create some online courses and how to do some work that would allow me to engage with more people directly at the same time.
That's great.
But I'm just starting to learn about all that, and that's part of growth also, right, is recognizing there's a lot of different opportunities, and you need to do some research, figure out who you want on your team, who shares your vision, and who can help you get to that end.
So talk about your team. You obviously can't do it all, so I'm sure you have a team around you that you communicate with often and sort of like disciples, so to speak. They have to learn what you know.
So my business model at the moment, I am the primary trainer, coach, deliverer of sorts. So my people I've ended up working with on more of an outsource basis. I have a lot of contractors who I've been working with, for some of them for months and others for years. And it's nice when you get to the point where they really understand what you're looking for. So to me, referrals are incredibly important. I'm really going to trust people who recommend different service providers to me, whether it's virtual assistants, graphic designers, marketers, salespeople, business analysts, bookkeepers. Because you're right, you can't do all those. And I've tried to do some of them, and I realized I think I'd rather put my head through a wall than try this for one more minute.
Yes.
And you need to recognize at what point you have to give up your control of certain things in order to be able to do more of what you were meant to do.
That's such a great tip, and things change all the time. At one point you feel really great financially, and then you say, oh, I need to do more marketing, or I should have sales, or I should have this or that. You always have those pivotal points,
Sure.
That you brought up. But, we talked about the mountain, when you go up the mountain and you're gathering things in your basket, and you picked up so many amazing resources. So you have your PhD. That's not an easy feat.
No.
That's a big resource to put in that basket, right? So what was your PhD in?
I did my PhD at the University of Pennsylvania. That was in educational linguistics. So where it was a stepping stone towards where I am now is that I looked at a variety of things from the cognitive processing in speech. What is it that makes something go in one ear and out the other? When does learning occur? What makes something register and go, oh, okay, I need to hold on to that longer? And then what is it about the way someone is talking to you that makes it stick or go in one ear and out the other? And then what are some of the factors involved that create filters for how I interpret it? Is it my home culture? Is it my gender? Is it my industry? There's so many different pieces that can influence how I receive what I hear. And all of that has been very influential in my ability to add different perspective to my clients' lives.
It's just fascinating. When I was a little girl, I had an ear operation. I couldn't hear really well until I was around 12.
Wow.
And recently I've been around, someone who has a hearing impediment, and I have been forced to speak differently and communicate differently because he told me that the tone of my voice, it was more difficult. There were certain tones that he could pick up more easily, which I never knew.
Sure.
So being empathetic in my communication. So there's so many facets of this that, you have privilege to. So half hour, an hour is not enough time to really get what I would really love to, totally get out of you. This is why this book is so important, but coaching with you would be phenomenal, gaining that type of wisdom.
And that's something that I try to do with anybody who's really interested in exploring the potential of what we could do together over 6 months or a year of coaching, is to do a one-on-one for 45 minutes to an hour and do a deep dive, because the fact is, by the end of that hour, if this is a good match, you should have a head ready to explode full of all the things that you're suddenly aware of that are in your control that you just need to learn to harness to be able to shift your brand and get better results from the people you're working with.
So this show, Business Connections, right? The most critical entry point in making these connections is really what you say about what you do.
The elevator pitch.
Yeah, and most people dislike that term. I do as well, but we know what it is.
Badly.
Yes, and we know what it is.
Yep.
And you brought up trust. I think that is a big deal. You also brought up respect. So there's a lot of core values
Sure.
that underlie, the basis of the communication. But the actual using the instrument, almost like your dad, who was a music teacher, I just can't help but get over that, because it is really like an instrument, your voice, whether it's really
is. Singers would
or,
tell you that is their
Yeah.
instrument.
Right. But I think that we in business need to use it more effectively as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are there tips that you could give the audience, as far as really speaking effectively when you're trying to not convince somebody to buy your product,
Sure.
and not in a networking situation, but just a general piece of advice when you're communicating about your business to another, whether it's in a group or one-on-one, some tips for the audience to remember?
I think that one general rule of thumb is that a bad habit most people have is speaking in run-on sentences. And we don't realize what a domino effect there is to other aspects of speech, the sound of our voice, and the clarity of our message when we do that. And we've all gotten the text messages from friends where it's like this long and there's either no punctuation whatsoever or just something at the very end, and you're reading through it and going, I cannot process this. What are you talking about? But that's how most people speak. They speak in stream of consciousness. They speak in run-on sentences. And if you were to transcribe it, you'd realize that there's no punctuation whatsoever until the very end. But that makes it really hard for the listener to figure out exactly what you mean. They're trying to follow that train, that runaway train. So we want to be much more mindful in trying to figure out, as you're talking, what are my points? Let me make 3 of them, not just one with a whole bunch of commas and ands in the middle. So imagine that you wanted people to take notes on what you're saying. You don't want them just to put down a bullet, start to write, and then have only one bullet that's this long.
Right.
You have to cue them. Where are you finishing your point? Let me hear a vocal period. Let your voice drop. Take a breath to pause. That's a cue. Okay, put another bullet because I'm going to start another point. So when you can help people understand where your points are and not that it's just this giant tangled web of words, then you become a lot easier to understand, and that makes you more credible by default, more authoritative.
I would love to have more points, but of course, you know what time it is.
I do.
Yeah, but I want you to give information to the audience where they can find this wonderful resource we have with us today.
So the website you can go to is vocalimpactproductions.com. There's lots of resources there, videos, audio programs, and other things to tap in and learn for how to figure out your own blind spots, how to get out of your own way and regain control and power through your speech. And of course, you can go to Amazon for the book as well, which is Speaking to Influence, Mastering Your Leadership Voice. It's available in paperback as well as Audible and Kindle editions.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Dr.
Carol.
Laura Sicola. Just an amazing guest, and I feel like I want another 5 hours with you today just to pick your brains. But
I've loved talking to you.
please go find the book and call upon Dr. Laura. She's an amazing resource, so we could all speak to influence.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you for joining me every Friday on Business Connections. I will see you again next week. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend.